It's okay for you to better yourself and your life and the lives around you through your efforts and your action. That's not selfishness. Selfishness is when you're ready, everything is mine. We're being greedy and we're sabotaging other people.
If you're not conscious about your investment strategy, you won't end up where you want to be, not financially or as a human. On this show, we interview highly successful investors and share how they overcame limitations to become unstoppable forces of success. If you're ready to learn what it is to be a conscious investor so you can end up where you want, keep listening.
Welcome back, Conscious Investor. We're doing it. We're going all in on debunking the lie of selfishness. As I attend events, as I speak with so many of you amazing conscious investors, I regularly hear this plea, I'm being selfish. And so we want to dive into that because there is a whole narrative that we are telling ourselves that we just really need to shift on this topic of selfishness. So we're going to do that. But before we do, I want to say thank you. I have, as always, been looking at all these amazing reviews and all the kindness that you guys shower the Conscious Investor podcast with. And I just want to say thank you. This podcast is created for you, to serve you, to help you take your first and next step in your investing journey. And we are like, the reviews are just phenomenal. I'm scrolling right now, and the most recent review says Julie's podcast has great content and guests. She does a great job of making information easy to understand for her listeners. So I just want to do a shout out. Thank you, TB46, for leaving that comment to support the Conscious Investor podcast. You're amazing and I appreciate it. I also want to give a huge shout out to Mode Wealth for sponsoring this podcast. Mode Wealth is a tax strategy firm. They will help you mitigate in an ethical, moral way. So we always want to do things in a way that is right and true. But those tax codes are there for you to utilize. And Mode Wealth is there to help you, create a strategy and a plan so that your reporting of your taxes is going to, really allow you to put your money back into the things that you believe in, which, hey, guess what? That benefits, it stimulates the economy. Okay, are we ready to dive in? Because really, truly, it breaks my heart. And I am a recovering um, selfish lie believer. One thing that comes up is like the illusion of selfishness. And so before we go too heavily into this, let's have a working definition. Steve and I were talking recently, and so we literally said, okay, let's just look up what does a dictionary, I know, what does a dictionary say about selfishness? And the definition, if you go to Google, which is what I'm going to read from, and Google is not Oxford, it's not the Merriam-Webster. So I just want to be very clear on that. But the running definition is, and it's going to give us everything that we want here, right? Of a person, action, or motive lacking consideration for others, concerned chiefly with one's own personal profit or pleasure. So if maybe this is going to, land for you, conscious investor, maybe you're like, oh, I can't spend that money on myself. That would be so selfish. Maybe you find yourself feeling bad taking time for yourself because, oh, that'd be selfish. My wife has been home with the kids. I've been at work all day, my wife's been at home with the kids. It would be selfish for me to take 20 minutes for me to go for a walk and catch my breath. In my husband's, in his world, it's let me go for a motorcycle ride, right? Because I always need to be serving. Sometimes we might have a difficult time receiving good things from people because we're like, well, I don't want to be selfish. I've spoken about this. I'll give this example. I've used it before, that my daughter and I, little miss, we used this example. I said, she thought she was doing something really nice. She did not want to be selfish with the last piece of pizza that was available. And so she wanted me to have the biggest piece of pizza. You've heard me talk about this before. She's like, "Oh, I don't want to be selfish. I want to make sure you have the best." That is super kind, super generous, super thoughtful. And yet, guess what? I would rather have a small piece of pizza, which is crazy. So we had this conversation, little miss and I, about like, well, wanting the best for others looks different. It doesn't always look the same way to us. And so we need to be aware of it. So when we're having a difficult time receiving good things, we need to be thinking about these things. As you are going about your day, I want you to be aware. I'm going to encourage you to be aware of this illusion of I'm being selfish popping up in your everyday actions, behaviors, and responses to the world around you. Here's some actual things about selfishness, okay? And I'm going to read this again. If you just Google this, there's like so much good information on it, but I'm just going to deliver it to you on a silver platter, right? It says lacking empathy, controlling, manipulative, materialistic, self-centered, cheap with others. So going back to that example of little miss having this pizza and wanting to offer me what she perceived as the very best, that's not being cheap with others. She was offering something that for a child that's valuable, right? More often than not, so many of you amazing conscious investors are putting this burden on yourself of I'm being selfish, that would be selfish. And I'm going to challenge you and just say, I think it's an excuse. Let's talk about reasonable excuses. It would be a reasonable excuse. Well, if I choose to pursue that and I displace other people, that's me being selfish, trying to sabotage and take it out. It's okay for you to better yourself and your life and the lives around you through your efforts and your action. That's not selfishness. Selfishness is when you're ready, everything is mine. We're being greedy and we're sabotaging other people. There is a big difference. But we can find ourselves in this place, this position of false comfort, and we can hold ourselves back perpetually from the success that we could very readily receive just by nature of, oh, that's selfish. Taking care of our bodies, setting aside time to make sure that we're maintaining our health and fitness, not selfish. If we're not healthy, in fact, earlier this week, my whole week kind of got a little bit screwed up because I got a tummy bug. And so the entire day last Monday, I was laid up. And fortunately, it's beautiful weather. So I just lounged. I laid on a lounger outside, did some coaching calls, and just I laid there uncomfortable. But it was like, oh my goodness. The point being is that when we're thinking about selfishness, I was reminded yet again of how important our physical health and well being is. I really couldn't serve my family. I had a 4 months and I was capable. I knew I could show up and I knew I could meet their needs and exceed their needs, through that call. However, when we're not physically caring for ourselves, we create a whole dichotomy. So I'm actually going to argue that if you are not taking time to take care of your health and well-being by having your regular exercise, by getting the rest that you need, by making sure that you are planning your meals and eating well, if you're not doing those things, you're actually truly being selfish. I hate to say that, hate to break that to you. So if you're burning the candle at both ends and you're not getting the rest that you need, the rest that your body needs so that it can physically restore and replenish itself while you're sleeping, because remember, it's working hard while you're sleeping, then you are not caring for yourself. So let's look at that as, am I being selfish by not taking care of my physical health? I used to feel selfish because I would stay up late and I would write because that was how I could scroll away that time. Now I wake up early and I read, I write, I do all my stuff in the morning. It's not selfish. It's not selfish for me to not engage other humans in the house that might wake up and come down. It's like, nope, This is my time. This is my time to get my mental space, my spiritual space, my every part of me prepared for the day so that I can actually pour into the people around me, not selfish. I had to switch that narrative though, and you might need to also. We have to restore and replenish ourselves so that we can contribute and give outward to the people we care about and to the people we're called to contribute to in the world. More often than not, as I've had conversations with you, conscious investor, it has come up that it's like, oh, well, I don't want to be, arrogant. I don't want to be perceived as arrogant. I don't want people to think these terrible things about me. I don't want people to think that I'm more important than they are. And so we tell ourselves these stories, and basically we're creating this narrative about what people are thinking about us. Isn't that a little, when we look at it in that regard, isn't it a little skewed, a little strange? So the people that know us best, that love us, that care about us, that are in our ecosystem, they should know our heart. And yet sometimes we're going to screw up. We're humans. But they should know our heart is to serve and support them and to empower them to, live into their purpose and contribution. But it's difficult to do that when we're concerned about, oh, okay, well, if I do that, then it's going to be selfish. If I'm at this event and I step away from a conversation because I just need to go up to my room or outside just to catch my breath, that might be selfish. I could do so much more by supporting and talking to other people. Right? We have to step back, pull back the curtain on the story that you're telling yourself. So the question might be, what do you need to shift in the narrative you are telling yourself so that you could actually live fully into your authenticity, into your genuine, true, whole self? I'm going to go one step further, and I'm just going to simply say it is selfish for us to not trust the world around us and to not be our authentic self. So when we're telling ourselves these narratives about the world around us, when we're doing that, we're actually creating like this little protective barrier, almost like the Truman Show, that old show with Jim Carrey, where there's a whole TV show about him, and his whole life was he was growing up in this, TV studio type thing without even knowing it. Like you could create your own Truman Show type situation in your mind and fabricate it by saying, if I do this, I'm going to be perceived as selfish. So I have to make sure that I don't do XYZ so that these people don't think, QRS about me. We have no idea what people are going to think about us, but we know our heart and our intentions behind our actions. And so as you are going about life, you got to think like, well, am I being compassionate? Am I allowing people choice in their life and flexibility? Am I trying to control the situation? And am I just doing something to be self-absorbed? When you can answer those questions and those answers are lining up, it's like, no, I am looking out for others. You're fine. So now you have to look at that, do the deeper work and say, why am I telling myself this narrative? Why am I selling myself short? Why am I selling the world short of the very best of me? And when you do that, you're going to unleash this magnificent, beautiful potential in your life. Conscious investor, I hope you take a step to do that. I hope that you stop telling yourself that narrative of, oh, if I do that, I'm selfish. Other people's opinions of you are not your business. Take these challenges for your week. See where they lead. Look for those little areas where you are just doing these micro acts of selling yourself short by the story and narrative that you are telling yourself. Ask yourself that deeper question about buying into the illusion of selfishness. Honestly, I have the luxury, the beauty of being able to travel, being able to meet so many of you being able to meet so many strangers, which there's no such thing as strangers, they're just friends we have yet to meet. And in doing so, I have to say, I've met very few selfish people. There are so many kind and generous and considerate people in this world, and you are one of them, conscious investor. Bring your best to the world. Do that deep work. Shift the narrative in your life. Until next time, live big, love bigger, and do great things.
What's the big deal about investing in apartments? Why is it better than investing in a slew of single-family homes? I've compiled a lot of information on why investing in a multifamily, also known as apartments, will help you reach your investment goals. Head over to 3keysinvestments.com and download the Why Invest in Multifamily guide today.